thank you so much, Mike. Okay, good morning still. It's 9:21. We will call this Economic Development Authority work session to order. We have 3 items of discussion today. First off is item number 2.1, which is new commissioner and mayor introductions. It was asked that we just kind of go around just so that other folks can know each other. So maybe just give a very brief description, your name, and what interested you in the Economic Development Authority. So I'll start. My name's Andrea Bedker. I am the City Council President, and then I have been active with the Economic Development Authority for 2 years. And I'm pleased to be leading the EDA this year for the year. Thank you.
I can go, Michelle Markgraf, and I ran for city council, did not make it, so I get to be here, which is an exciting place to be as well. And before that, asked to be mayor, but again, didn't make it, so.
You were close.
I was close. So very excited to be here and to have a say in the economic development of New Ulm. I think New Ulm is a great city and has so much going for it, and I look forward to learning more about how we can improve the city.
I'm Les Schultz, Vice President of the City Council. I'm the old timer. I started on the council in 2009. So a couple of years left on this particular term. I was the probation director for Brown County for almost 30 years, retired in April. And I teach a college class right now to kind of keep myself a little busy. And that's all.
I'm Lindsay Henn. I'm a business owner in New Ulm, so I own Minnesota Ice, the ice cream shop, and most recently purchased the Guten Tag House. So I have a very special interest in economic development as a business owner.
Absolutely.
I love our community and an already great existing base with a lot of potential as well is really exciting. So I am glad to be part of the conversations.
When does the ice cream shop open?
April 1st.
Most important.
I'll be there.
Just check.
Valentine's Day?
I didn't this year because of the Germany trip. I
Okay.
didn't have it in me this year, but yeah.
Do you want me to go?
Yeah.
Well, just, yeah, we might as well just real quickly.
Heather Briegel, Housing Coordinator, Acting Economic Development Director. I did some property management before my job here. I was the director at Ridgeway and German Assisted Living, and also when Prairie Senior Cottages Memory Care opened, I went there and worked there for a couple of years. So I'm familiar with, leasing and that kind of the property management side of things. So applied for the job as housing coordinator and did that for my first 12 or 13 years here. And then now I'm delving into economic development and learning a lot. Chris has been a fabulous mentor to me. I needed some help along the way, and still do.
Hi, I'm Kathleen Backer, and Les says he's the old timer. He might be the old timer to City Council, but indeed, I'm one of the old timers, if you will, in the room. Economic development has been an interest of mine ongoing since the 1980s. I was very active in the community then. And we had, the leadership of the Chamber of Commerce had a subcommittee, and it was regarding business retention and encouraging businesses. Don Gallness, the president of the Citizens Bank, headed up that committee, and every month we were assigned as a subset committee of the Chamber to do visits with established businesses, finding out what their labor issues were, if there was transportation issues and so on, and report it back. And so we canvass the entire industry and business community every year to see what the status was. Also, over time, Dick Salvati and I were good friends, and socially I would attack him about economic development, and particularly about the 2 Garden Terrace properties and why we were competing with private industry on those. So this is not a new issue at the table for me. I know for a fact several developers that looked at us years ago, not recently, but backed off because even though we were charging fair market value for the apartments, there was the issue of we weren't paying property taxes, so that wasn't an equal playing field. So anyway, going forward, I am so excited to be a part of this group as far as an observer and having input. I know I don't vote, but I certainly will have a voice. Thank you.
Chris Dalton, City Manager, I'm a Economic Development Executive Director as well. And I've been doing economic development probably for most of my adult life. It was my first job while in college was in the city of Long Beach in their economic development department. And so it is what brought me to New Ulm to begin with, being economic development director, and then moved into the city manager role. But New Ulm, when I applied for the job as economic development director, I saw from the two businesses I had prior, I saw the potential that the downtown has, the city has, the manufacturers here, the diverse economy that New Ulm has. We're not tied to one specific industry. If that industry dies, the city isn't going to fail. It'll hit a hurdle, but we'll be able to overcome that. And when just looking at the economics of the city, we don't hit the highs that everyone hits, and we don't hit the lows. We're always just kind of right there in the middle. So that just shows that this town is very resilient and we're able to bounce back. You know, we don't hit the highs, but we just don't hit those lows either. We're pretty consistent. And then economic development, you know, it's just been a passion, and having Heather being added to the team and giving her the opportunities that I was never able to have, you know, back in California, going through the economic development program that she's going to be a certified economic developer, will be monumental for the city, just having someone that is certified in economic development. So that might be another 1 or 2 year process, but getting there. She's taken all the classes, has to take the tests and stuff like that, but she is very much willing to learn and a good asset to the city.
Tom?
Hi, I'm Tom Bird. I am a fifth generation New Ulm person. Kathleen, you might be pretty close to that too, aren't you?
Yes, I am.
And I made several attempts to escape New Ulm, but it never seemed to work out. I always came back, and I wound up. I'm not going to bore you with all the details of why and how that happened today, but if you're interested, sometime we can have a beer and I'll tell you. But anyway. I just recently retired as the owner of Minnesota Valley Testing Laboratories, and in anticipation of that, about a year ago, I know most of the city council people, and I commented to one of them that, I'm going to be retiring, and I would like to do a little bit more for New Ulm to kind of give back. New Ulm's been very good to me, and not the community as well as the city government in particular. And next thing I know, I got a call from the mayor saying, "Hey, I understand you want to do something for the city. How about being on the EDA?" So here I am. It wasn't that mayor; it was the other one.
But I would have asked you also.
Anyway, yeah, because she and my wife are friends. So yeah, you guys would have rounded me up one way or the other, I suppose. But I seriously, I feel an obligation to do something useful and meaningful for a community that has been very good to me. And I went a long time before I really got around to retiring, but I much to several people's surprise, I finally did it. Kathleen's probably one of them. They thought I'd retire feet first, but I didn't. And but I am interested. I've been a part of the business community for a long time, but I am a scientist. I have a degree in chemistry and a minor in physics. And I'm very interested in what goes on in New Ulm for a whole variety of reasons, and I'll continue to do these kinds of things. I even ran for the city council once, but I got beat 4-1, and I learned my lesson on that one, and I probably shouldn't do that again.
of the people here,
Yeah, right.
myself included.
Well, it's an interesting story too, how that all came about. But anyway, but I'm glad I'm here. But I do feel an obligation to do something for New Ulm, and this is what I'm doing.
Thank you. Thank you,
Shrinking behind
Okay.
us.
Hi, I'm Shar Reinhardt Kalk. I'm also fifth generation New Ulm. New Ulm is very important to me. My kids, it was very important for me to raise my kids in a community like this. We do have a lot to offer. I have 2 adult children. Yeah, and that's a weird phase of life. And my youngest is a senior. And so I do also have a lot more time because I'm not running everybody to all these activities. And I was in the dental field for 26 years, and I've recently retired from that. So I do have a little extra time. And I want to definitely give back to this community who's given me so much. And I also am a business owner. I have 2 short-term rental properties here in town. So it's very important to me to see New Ulm succeed and grow. And just kind of maintain. I like what Chris said too. We don't get those highs, super highs. We also don't get those super lows. We have a lot of good economy here, a lot of manufacturing. I mean, it's just a great community to live in. And I definitely want to help support that any way I can. So here I am.
Thank
I
you.
also ran for mayor once, kind of. Here I am.
Do we have 2 city staff here yet?
Oh, Nicole Jorgensen, I have been, started as the accountant in 2011, finance director in 2015, and then have been a finance director since worked in private industry before, never thought I'd work with government. Fell in love with New Ulm when I moved here 20 years ago. All been good.
Excellent. Thanks, Lisa.
I'm Lisa, and
Wonderful. Well, welcome, everyone. Excellent. All right. Moving on to 2.2 is the housing study. And so we just wanted to kind of take a little bit of time to dig into this a little bit more. Chris, you wanted to?
I'll just go over some of the executive summary and just some of the facts that kind of stand out, particularly to me, as part of the study. So we'll start off with some of the housing characteristics. For single-family units, we are on average constructing 21 units per year, which I think is fairly good for a town our size. Could it be better? Sure, but I think when the housing crisis hit, we were still in that 13 to 15 range. So again, not the highs, not the lows, but again,
Study was the fall last year, right?
yes,
It was presented, I think, in
fall,
November.
November, yeah.
Thanks.
So single-family detached homes represent 94% of all our owner-occupied. 22% of our renters are in single-family detached home. I think that's kind of high on our end, but we'll touch base on the multifamily market. Median rent or contract rent is $650. And based on the 30% allocation, which HUD uses as your monthly income that should go, or your yearly income that should go to your rent, that income would be about $26,000 to afford that $650 a month. The state contract medium rent is $916 per month. In 2020, owner-occupied median income was about $78,000, compared to renters at about $37,000. Let's see. So on the rental housing market analysis, gross rent in New Ulm was $774, and again, you would need an income of about $30,000. Gross rent in the state of Minnesota is about $1,010. Out of the so they interviewed 18 out of the 20 general occupancy apartments. There was 1 market rate unit available, 0 affordable, 4 subsidized, which would have an overall vacancy rate of 0.3, 0, and 1.8 respectively. Two bedrooms make up the majority of our rental units, about 63%. And then, as Paul alluded to, the strongest growth is going to be amongst baby boomers. There's going to be an increase of roughly 537 people. And then ages 75 and older, you're looking at about 168 people, so an 11% growth. Out of the 18 vacant serviced enhanced units, so that's your memory care. There are only 18 vacancies, 2 memory care, 16 assisted living. And then there was a 2.5 vacancy rate in the active adult unit. So that'd be your city center apartments and so forth. In 2022, the median home price was $289. And you would have to have roughly 82 to 96,000 income for that to be your 30%, which is above median income for New Ulm. So they looked at our development pipeline. So we have a couple projects potentially in development. So the Hope Housing Foundation is doing affordable workforce project. That's 118 units, and that's Maplewood and Highland. EBMD is, and that's the Mark Platts Mall. That's anywhere from 30 to 90 units. So it'd be market rate, potentially 2 towers and a 1 tower of condos for sale. But ultimately, when that deal goes through, they'll start with a 30-unit market rate. Again, Oak Hill's looking at their 15 units of assisted living, and then S&P Development down on Fender and County Road 27, looking at doing 10 twin homes potentially. So with all of that, the housing needs for New Ulm between 22 and 2030 is market rate rentals, about 135 units. Currently, they say 0 affordable rentals, but that's due to Hope Housing coming in. But again, I still think there's probably more room for affordable units, considering the number of jobs that we have that are at our manufacturers that would be able to afford those affordable units. Subsidized rentals, about 30 units. For sale, single family, 149, and for sale, multi-family is about 50 units. So that's kind of what they're saying we should kind of focus on. We're addressing some of these currently with some of the pipeline. The biggest challenge that we're going to have is going to be the 149 units of single family. Again, if we're doing 21 a year, that's 7 years out. But also the affordability of that housing. I mean, they've just finished a house up on kind of by the airport, and it's listed for $500,000. And I'm like, that house is not worth $500,000. But it's the cost of construction, right? It's just the cost of construction. So those are things that the city will have to look at. The EDA would potentially have to look at, whether it's incentives or something like that to help bring down costs, things like that. But we'll see where that construction trade goes, as stuff develops in the city. But we're still on a good pace. Again, 21 units, 21 single-family homes a year for a town our size, when we don't have a major, developer like a Shea, KB Home, something like that coming in and just developing homes is pretty good. Would I like to see more? Absolutely, but we'll get there. And then the for sale multifamily, again, if the mall property goes through, again, that's potentially 30 units of those for sale multifamily units. So I think we're in line with the projects, but again, always open to suggestions, hearing what the EDA, the members have as suggestions or things that we could potentially look at. We've toyed around with the idea of tax abatement for homes and things like that to help reduce costs. But as we have manufacturing coming in and businesses, we're only allowed so much per year. I think it's 200,000 we can give out per year. I mean, not that we're close to that, but the more we do, the less we have to play with as bigger projects come through. But I know the mall project will have tax abatement. I know the Hope Housing will have tax abatement as that as well, but it's the single-family homes that we're kind of, don't really have any incentives for across the board, so.
Chris, the projections that they put in there of what's needed, that's just kind of to meet the existing demand, right? That's not,
Yes.
hey, we have a huge company that wants to come here, plant their feet down, add 200 plus jobs, so,
Yeah.
so this is just to meet the current needs that we have with our existing economy.
And you said it did include all the new development on Maplewood?
Yeah, so for the affordable rental, they knocked out, they put 0 units as affordable because of the Hope Housing development.
Yep.
But I would still say we probably need more than that as just a future goal. Because one of the interesting things is we're an importer of employees. We roughly import about 5,000 employees a day to work here. So if you have more housing available, potentially some of those individuals live here instead of drive in.
It's a lot.
So always looking for housing, multifamily. I know that's, not a huge carrot to some people, having multifamily, but the multifamily that is going to be built or is currently being built is not what I would consider, typical affordable housing. I mean, it's going to look nice. It's not going to be an eyesore in the community. It's not a cinder block mental hospital that's just built. That's gray. It's going to have character to it that people are going to want to live in.
And Chris, you touched on this too, but can you just kind of, the fact that we're a city that really attracts a lot of people that come into New Ulm every day from outside communities, and that could mean, commuting from Sleepy Eye or Springfield or Nicollet but how many more people we have coming into our city every day to work here than going out?
Yeah, so I think it's a little over, like I said, 5,039 coming in or 93, and roughly 2,200 to 2,500 leaving New Ulm to go to work. So we're a net importer of jobs. So again, there is ample opportunity to grow this community and keep some of those dollars here as far as living here. Wear and tear on car. I think we'll have better opportunity with the 4-lane coming through as well. Kind of both ways. More people willing to work in New Ulm because it's a safer commute. And the opportunity to capture those individuals that may not want to live in Mankato, but they're forced to live in Mankato because they can't find anything here. Capture those individuals as well. So that's kind of the overall housing study, kind of in a nutshell. Very, very easy. It's a fun read if you want to read it. But it does, again, it shows that there is going to be growth here. And there's, like we've all said through there's a lot of opportunity here for us to capitalize on. And I think the EDA has taken strides and the city has taken strides, and it's just moving all that stuff forward.
I joined this EDA board 14 years ago, and we were right smack in the middle of the EDA group that I joined. Was number one priority was housing, number one, and that's all we talked about. And now it's kind of daycare and some other things. And at that time, though, we really needed housing bad, but we were terrible at it. Yeah, we really were. We lost money everywhere. But so we went out and we bought that property out at Milford, and we chopped up the lots, and we made some really small so they'd be cheaper, and some we furnished, and some we put appliances in, and some we didn't. And we made not a dime on any house we sold. We sold every single house and almost every lot at a loss, right? Nicole?
I think initially we made money on them, but over time, then we'd break even, then we started losing money. So overall,
We
we
could not
probably
figure out a way to
came
sell
out
a
okay.
house at
But
a
yeah,
profit.
when we started losing money, we stopped
Then we
building.
said, let's build 2 at a time instead of 1 at a time. One makes it so expensive, let's build 2. Well, then we lost money on that too. Well, then we had a fire sales, I think what we called it, and we sold like 10 lots. Single lots all at one shot just to do a developer, and let's just at least sell them and get them built. And that's kind of how we ended up getting out of the housing business, was just putting them out for sale really cheap and, I mean, cheap, right? 5,000 or something or less.
And we have, what, 4 of those lots left to be built on? Yeah. So, I mean, that developer's come in and
So, yeah,
built
so
2 a
they've been
year.
developed now, and there's a nice market of housing out there, so, so if we were to go back into the world of housing, oh, boy, we'd have to make sure we don't make the same mistakes we did before, and I don't know what that would be, but that'd be worth,
And I
like, if
don't
we were
think
to
it's
sell
gotten
Garden
any
Terrace.
easier with inflation. The cost of construction is, I don't want to get back into that.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be nervous about getting back into it, but I wouldn't mind figuring out a way to help a business, construction business get in there and do it for us, but I mean, that'd be, if we're to sell Garden Terrace, that would be something we'd want to talk about, I would assume. I would want that on that list, but, thank you, I appreciate getting a good refresher for me anyway, and, there still is a housing need out there.
Absolutely, yeah.
There-
Oh,
go
go
ahead.
ahead. No, you go.
Oh, I was
go
going
ahead.
to say, there certainly is, and that is the purpose of us doing this housing study. The reason that we held off just kind of discussing this is because we knew we were going to have some new commissioners. But there was a lot of work put into this housing study, and those of us who have been familiar with the EDA for some time and very familiar with New Ulm, it's honestly not going to tell us anything that we probably didn't already know was going on, but it does give us some more specifics, and it is something that we can use as, a guide as we work to address or attract a bigger developer that can help us with these needs. We kind of know what's here. And I would like everyone to at least take a look at it, become familiar with what it is, because we spent the money on this. It's what we said we needed. It's what everybody said we wanted. And this is the information and the data that we're going to use to drive those decisions for the next couple of years as we look to meet the needs of the community.
How much, it costs, what, 50 grand?
No, it's about 18,000 to do a housing
by a
study,
little.
and we try to do one every 5 years because developers want
Developers
that
want it too.
housing study, and we have shared it with several developers. Hope Housing wanted it. Another developer that's coming to do a site tour in the next week or two looked at it, and they're very interested in potentially doing a project in New Ulm. So that's the main reason we do them, is for developers, because they look at it and they analyze what the needs are, and they want to make sure they're developing something that's going to be profitable to them.
Banks too, when they get loans, the banks usually ask for, one was the most recent housing study.
I agree. Any additional discussion? Okay. Heather, would it be possible for you just to resend that report to us?
The
And-
housing study?
Yes, just so that it's kind of fresh in our inboxes. I know that helps to keep it top of mind. Thank you. All right, item number 2.3. So EDA and Newbrick partnership. We all know we have the relationship, but I think that this item was placed on the agenda to better define what the expectations are and what that looks like. What we expect is an EDA, and so again, with some new commissioners here, getting the thoughts on what those expectations should be. For those who were not here, I think, was it in December that we approved, the EDA approved $50,000 to Newbrick again this year to support their development and operations. And I'm going to leave it there, and I'm going to open it up. Heather or Chris?
Chris, do you want to maybe just give a history of the EDC and how that was funded, and then how it's evolved to where we are today, just for those who don't have that history? Because you know it and I know it, but without that background information, it might be
So
Sort of confusing.
before Newbrick, there was EDC, and that was the Economic Development Corporation, and they had a staff member that was funded through the EDA, the city, and the PUC.
Yeah, it was the city and the PUC each gave $50,000 per year to fund their executive director position.
Yep. And then eventually the city felt that the money wasn't, or the return on investment wasn't there, and they decided to bring economic development in-house, and that's what created the position that I applied for, the economic development director. And so part of that, EDC lost their staff person and kind of didn't know what to do as an organization. They kind of quickly in turn let that person go instead of having them for the rest of the year to kind of figure out, what those directions were. So they've been without a director for at least 3 years. And then finally said, hey, they had a strategic plan meeting and said, hey, we need a director. And
Well,
then,
and in the meantime,
Yeah.
Chris, I'll just point out, they were planning to disband actually, and they gave a good chunk of their reserves to the CTE Center, $750,000. So they about depleted their
Oh, I forgot about that.
reserves. So when they had the strategic plan and decided to hire an executive director, they really didn't have the money.
They have land, right?
Then
They
they
still
came to
have land,
us.
right?
They have one lot left they haven't
How big is
sold.
that lot?
no, I think they
It's
sold that one, or
The
no,
one
they
in
still
the
have
ind-
one.
They have one in the industrial park.
Yeah.
They've sold 3,
Oh, okay.
and they have one left. So they did get some money back in the last year from land sales. But they spent a lot of that on the lawyer getting their 501c3.
Yeah.
So they still don't have it. I don't know. I don't know how much money they have in the bank because they don't share that with us, but
Yeah. And so we.
they say they need our help.
Yeah, so we've been giving them 50,000 a year for the last 2 years, so in 22, and then now in 23, we've given them 50,000 for economic development purposes. So for the first year,
And just real quick, does PUC go in on that also? PUC is not. Okay, so the 50,000 is just coming from us at this point. Thank you.
yes. And so with the first year, again, we didn't get a lot of reports, and I would say the biggest accomplishment that they did last year was become a 501c3 and work with Region 9 to apply for a robotics grant that's either tied to MLC or the CTE Center. Don't really know, don't get a lot of information on what that really was for.
Paul's office is now in the CTE Center. right?
Yes, but I think the original application was for MLC to have a STEM program, a robotics lab, but I think they moved it. So again, don't know all the details for that one. And then their project Spark is kind of the other one, teaching STEM at Cathedral and maybe MBL. I know Cathedral has 2 teachers teaching it, and maybe MBL might have 1 or 2 teachers as well. So those have been kind of the major accomplishments that we're aware of. Because again, doesn't come and tell us what businesses he's working with, even vaguely, like, hey, I'm working with a business to expand, I'm working with a business to X and Y, right? What does that look like moving forward? Again, I think for the path for the New Ulm partner, it's just New Ulm partnership. Paul hasn't been at the last 4 meetings. And he's the executive director of Newbrick, and he's not attending the partnership meetings where that's where we're supposed to have those talks about economic development and being on the same page. But again, really up to the board, kind of what you see, what are questions that we can ask their board to answer moving forward, things like that. Again, very good example, as we've told them numerous times, you have to submit your report to us multiple times. And again,
That's why I kind of put the pressure on today.
So we really don't know where the 50,000.
it goes to his salary. We know it's his
Supports
salary.
the salary.
It supports his salary.
Right.
That's so.
Salary and benefit package.
Yeah.
That
that-
Newbrick gives them,
Yeah, so
health
that's-
insurance, things like that.
And again, EDC and Newbrick are the same. It was just a rebranding that was done because a lot of people were confusing EDC with EDA or didn't understand what the differences were. So I do think
Yes.
that that was a good move. And that organization is completely independent of what we're doing in the city, but the goal is through the partnership with the EDA, with the chamber and with Newbrick, that we are working as a unit on the same page. I do not attend
That's
those
the
meetings,
idea.
but that is the purpose of Michelle and I serving as those ex officios, just so that we have a little bit more of a seat at the table. Is there anyone else here that attends the meetings, the partnership meetings? Heather, you do? Lindsay, do you?
I'd be interested in doing that.
Okay.
We,
Newburgh's board is primarily composed of bankers and
Not anymore. It
Not
used to
anymore?
be. So they've had a lot of turnover. They've filled it with business owners now. Still some bankers are on there, but they have mixed it up. It used to be just the banks in town were each represented, couple businesses of industry, and that was it.
Remember when I first started, they were always seen as the group that were supposed to bring in the big industries. We concentrated more on the smaller ones, and they concentrated more on the big ones.
and I think that's still kind of the lanes
Idea.
we've determined as we had a strategic planning session at the partnership, and we're trying to figure out who does what. I reach out to all businesses in town, but probably work more with small businesses because we have a lot more small businesses in town. And Paul's focus is more on the large manufacturing businesses. So I don't think that's changed. But one of the reasons we don't have an EDA commissioner on the partnership is because that is supposed to be a place where we can talk in private and share information that doesn't leave the room, that kind of stays within that group. But we still at that meeting get I'm working with someone, but I can't talk about it because of non-disclosure. So we're still really not, even at the partnership, getting information on what Newbrook is doing.
And I would guess even the Andrea now on that board, she's only going to be allowed to sit on it for so long and then see you later because we're going to talk finances, right?
Potentially.
I would assume that.
Potentially. I mean, that's how it was during the EDC. We would
Yeah.
go, essentially, we would go and give updates on what the city's doing, and then they'd ask us to leave.
Right.
And they'd talk, about their business and stuff, which is absolutely fine.
Fine, yeah. Yep.
So again, it's kind of what are the expectations, that you're looking for as far as, reporting every month, is it?
Well, we kind of laid the groundwork today, so let's find out what he does next month.
We laid it many times over the
I
past
know.
12 months. I just want to, I know we're in a work session, but I want to clearly reiterate that as well, that the expectations with receiving those funds for the past 24 months have been clear.
And I just want to state frankly, I'm no one's babysitter. I'm not going to remind him that his report is due. I'm not going to beg him to send it to me. If I get it, it'll be on the agenda. If I don't, we won't put him on the agenda and he shouldn't be given a chance to speak. We have open meeting laws that we have to abide by as a government entity. So we can't just let anyone come up to the podium and speak. The public has a right to know what we're going to talk about at our meetings and have the chance to review it ahead of time. That's why we publish our agenda 2 days ahead of our meeting. It's law.
I would agree. And I will say there is value in Newburgh. There really is. They can do a lot of things that we as a city, as a EDA, can't do because they're not beholden to taxpayers. At the end of the day, so they can have.
They
those
can wine and
private-
dine.
Yeah, they can have those private discussions that we can have, but eventually they have to. That information has to become public. It's just how the interaction takes place. I think has been better than it used to be. I will absolutely state that we are at a much better place than we were, 2 years ago, a year ago. But I think it's just the trust still isn't there, I think, for whatever reason, and it's just getting everyone on that same page to talk about the issues we need to talk about. Because again, I can't even tell you the grants he's applied for, even though he said he's applied for 1 million grants. There's never any detail given on who, what, where, when, and why. Again, he hasn't mentioned his Spark Bus grant, but he's applied for that. But I'm part of the Region 9, and the only application I see that he worked on Region 9 is the robotics one. So was that a different grant? Like, again, it's information, but no substance, at the end of the day, and that's,
Well, I think that's gonna be up to us to
Yeah.
start asking those tough questions,
Yeah.
but we need to know from the board what questions to ask. too.
I just think that we need to have a written report with, how do you say general specifics? Like, okay, I had conversations with 4 businesses. We applied for X amount of grants. I don't think a business model reliant on grant support is strong. But,
That'll help make that funding decision next year. if they don't-
correct, yes.
Yeah, I mean, literally that, how are they gonna get our support if they're not following through with what we want? So,
Kind of similar to our discussion in the regular meeting, I would look for definitely in the future that there's an application and financials are disclosed in that, this is how I'm going to use your 50,000. And I would see, I mean, if there's, because from my experience or for what I saw, it was more badgering, give me the 50,000 and we did. So I would look for definitely in the future, if there is any money given, that there's a well thought out plan, a business plan, if you will, how and why I need this money and where are we getting other sources of funding from, because it can't be all grants.
'cause he pretty much said this 50,000 was for clerical help.
yeah.
But we
And
gave it
his
to him for his
salary.
salary. But then I would also like the reports, at a meeting, it'd be nice to have a report, but maybe quarterly, it's a more thorough report of this is how I help this many people. I have a concern. Last meeting, he talked about how he was helping a business in town, but was also financially himself invested in that business. So are we paying him $50,000 to basically work with the one business where he already has his own personal financial interest?
Yeah, there
Or-
definitely seems to be a conflict of interest there.
So how is our 50,000 being
So-
used?
I did talk to our city attorney about that. Technically not a conflict of interest with us, but definitely a conflict of interest with his board.
Ah.
And it's Newbrick's conflict of interest, not EDA's conflict of interest, because I specifically asked, can we fund a position that potentially has a conflict of interest? And city attorney was like, no, because you're technically giving the money to Newbrick, not specifically Hall. The conflict of interest is internally.
Who's their board president?
Shannon Hill.
Shannon
Bill Shannon?
And I just want to say that we wouldn't, if we are looking for financial information, I wouldn't be looking for anything different than I'm expecting from any of the other organizations. One of the things that's very important to me as the council, again, as we are distributing taxpayer dollars, is those user groups and those nonprofits that come to the city for funds will need to fill out applications. They will need to disclose the need for those funds, not the want, not the expectation for those funds. And so I think this is a good year to look at those and maybe set those same criteria up. And we're asking people that are doing our new business loan program to do the same. Submit a business plan, show that you've paid those $10,000. We need to hold these people accountable, and I am not afraid to do it.
The stricter criteria needs to be an all-around.
Agreed.
And so those will be work session discussions, I'm sure, as we progress into the warmer months.
Well, good discussion, because I think I was asking that some of the, what we all were just, so we're all kind of on the same page. What's some of the history of Newbrick and?
Yeah.
I just want to mention too that we pledged the 50,000 for this year. They are paid monthly. We have a contract. It can be terminated. We don't have to go the whole, if you're not happy, it could be terminated. I just want you to know that. I'm not suggesting you do that, but I just want you to have that information, that I think it would be like a 30-day notice that we want to terminate the contract. If you decide that money could be best spent elsewhere,
And maybe we need to have
if he
that
continues to
discussion.
show up and not submit reports
Can that
and,
criteria be presented to them and say, this is what we need
Right.
going forward? If this criteria is not met, then we're going to be forced to terminate this contract.
I don't even know if we have to go that far, because we've already told them that.
yeah, I mean,
needs to
it's
be a
kind of
consequence.
laid out in the contract what they're,
Now we just laid it out more
maybe what I
today.
should do is send you all a copy of the contract that they signed, because it spells out in there that he's to give a monthly report at our meetings, that, and that's been brought to their attention multiple times.
Yeah, and if he doesn't bring one next month, that'll tell us a lot, a lot.
I have yet to receive a report for the agenda, and we're going on our second year with them.
What was the difference? Because he said, I thought it had to be verbal or written. Well, he didn't give a verbal one either. So what
Well,
was?
he did because we
did.
asked him
Okay,
to,
okay.
but
There was no detail though.
no.
I mean, it was just concepts.
Yeah, yeah.
it's a lot of talking, but not a lot said.
Is there also a way to communicate this more with the entire
Right.
board? Because they do have a nice, well-rounded group of people sitting
exactly.
on that board that I think would be very
don't
interested
know
to
what's
know
going
what
They
our
know this is
experience is
happening,
and what
you
we
know?
need, and could help maybe guide that or encourage that within their own group. I think they'd be very interested to know that the expectations aren't being met.
And the frustration level's growing.
Yeah.
So,
Who gives that message?
Chris,
I can
This is
talk to Shannon.
executive director, so you
Yeah.
should be the one
I
to,
can talk to Shannon.
yeah, I think you're just passing on that the frustration level's growing and here's where we're at and, but I like the fact that, yeah, maybe we don't have to wait till the end of the year and not fund next year. We could cut off the funding in June or May or who knows
yeah,
what.
I mean, ultimately, that's up to you. It's not like we gave them $50,000. They are paid monthly.
Okay, yeah, I didn't know that either, so that's
And I
good.
don't think it's unreasonable to say this contract is not being fulfilled. Here's kind of your last warning. And this is what needs to happen moving forward if you want to continue to receive these funds.
It's almost kind of like, well, you're only giving me 50,000. It's not that
But
big.
I don't want
mean,
them to
that's kind
think
of my
either
feeling- my
that just
feeling anyway.
coming and giving us a vague report once a month meets our
Right.
expectations
I'll
either.
do that
I
for
mean,
50,000, you know?
Yeah,
I think all of
could
us
do
would.
that.
Right.
I'd like another $50,000, you know?
Yeah.
But is it meeting the goals that the partnership is outlining? Is that work being done? And, you know, what are the deliverables with that? What is the strategic plan for financial independence? Because
Yeah, I
this is
really
not
don't
something we
know
can continue to.
What they offer to a business, I have never referred someone to Newbrick for anything because I don't know what they offer. I refer people to Wendy because we pay her to consult with businesses, but we also pay Paul in a sense, but I don't know what he does for a business.
Right.
You know, he talks about bringing in investors. Well, not every business, that's not appropriate for every business. I mean, do you think the gal that just started the travel agency wants a board and investors to bring her business to the next level?
But if he is legitimately
I'm
after big
confused what he
businesses-
offers.
Yeah, because how is that different than Wendy?
Well, do we have some kind of a document or formal agreement with them? I mean, I'm
We have a
still relatively new here.
contract.
She's going to send it, I believe.
But there is a document that says,
contract.
okay, you do this and we'll do that. And these are the rules of the game,
Yeah, I don't know how, it's been a while since I've looked at it. I'll have to look at it again, but I'm not,
you know?
I just have never really gotten a feel for what Paul can do for a business. He says he can help him develop a business plan, well, so can Wendy,
And we're already paying her.
and we already pay her.
So it's almost like what I hear him saying is he's out recruiting, trying to bring new businesses into town where we more or less wait for people to come to us and then we help them develop.
But Newbrick's
Sort of.
made the argument, why are you paying Wendy Anderson when Paul could provide that service? But
Do they say that?
they've said it
They
to
said
Chris
it.
and I.
Oh,
They've said it, but
They
I'm
don't like that we pay
Wendy
Wendy.
provides a very good service.
Yeah, but you know, I mean, I kind of have had discussions with Paul over time, and one of the real differences between him and Wendy is that, you know, Wendy seems kind of focused and understanding of what it takes to start from scratch with a small business
Right.
and make it grow. Where Paul seems to be on a path of, well, let's get a great big business in here right away. You know, like 3M or something. That's probably not going to happen.
Well, for one thing, that'd be great if it happened, but where are they going to house their employees and where are their employees going to find childcare? So we already have those challenges now, so bringing in another large company only makes our existing problems worse. So how important is that as a goal for us right now to bring in another large employer? When 3M is our largest employer and they can't fill their jobs.
And Kraft and Firmenich and AMPI and
Medical
UCU
center.
and Medical
And
Center.
you know, and I'm recently retired, but I've had we've been fighting that problem for years. It's, I mean, there's all kinds of, demographic things going on as well. I mean, I grew up here, and I have 3 children. And way back, when my children were little, you only got 3 kids, you're some kind of an amateur or what? I mean, times are very different.
Yeah.
And we have and we got a large aging population. Those workers, I don't know where we're going to get them from.
I have an idea, and I don't know if this is the place to present that, but why don't we go to the schools and give them mentorship as far as, can we provide scholarships? Like, we need CNAs, LPNs, RNs, what, if you talk about, we need to get these kids excited
Chris brought
about.
that up and I went, what?
Yes, we have money. Why wouldn't we invest in our children? Like, let's give them, some people might not just be able to go out and pay for an LPN degree or an RN degree, and we need those people at Newell Medical
To
Center.
be honest, I mean, we
and
did
Oak Hills.
support bringing in the CTE Center and giving them
Yes.
some money. 'cause
Absolutely.
That was so
Oak
huge.
Hills does offer some of that for the
Sure.
nursing field, so
But they're
I don't
burnt
want to
out.
duplicate
We
what's
need to
already
get
out there,
more
but
people, like, the more we can bring, the better.
Yeah, keep
On
that
my-
as a focus.
It's on my list of programs to develop. So that was one of the things I was mulling over, was doing scholarships for seniors to go to specifically,
Right.
South Central.
Yeah. Mechatronics, whatever.
Yeah.
But I got to tell
And
you.
then having them come back, like, so we give you the scholarship, we
Yes.
pay for your 2 years,
Yep.
but you have to come back
Take a job
for
in
3
New Ulm for
years.
Works for
period
New
of
Ulm for
time.
4 years or whatever.
Whatever that
I got to
is.
tell you, I belong to the Optimist Club.
At least 10 years.
Do people know?
Well, of course they
I
know.
haven't
mean, we
seen
tell
it.
'em.
Okay.
Well, you don't work for us either.
Well, see, but that's the thing, is it just people, so my
No,
son
no,
is,
It's only for internal use.
Oh,
frankly.
okay. Well, maybe you should
we do-
expand that.
We do offer that. But, surprisingly, I mean, I guess part of the problem I have with all of that is that, I struggled greatly to get a college degree. But I got it, and I've been pretty well off ever since. But a lot of people don't want to work that hard either. That's I mean, and now I realize I sound like an old geezer. But
there's a lot of people who do.
these days.
Oh, but Tom, you're onto something. Last
Yeah.
night at the Optimist Club, there's a gal from the Cathedral School was talking about $1,500 grants, and they're almost a guarantee, and 2 or 3 of the students wouldn't fill them out. I'm not doing that.
I mean, yeah.
They wouldn't fill
But
them
see,
out. They
They
said-
don't want to be, they don't want to have that kind of an
I
imposition.
know,
on
so it's
their
just like,
life.
Well,
so we got to keep that in
and
mind.
Our program
Students
is.
are
it's-
going to come and apply, though, because as someone who employs a lot of young people, I am incredibly impressed with the young people that I employ.
Good.
Are there ones that are not willing to really do the work? And yeah, of course there are.
Sure.
But if you're putting out a scholarship program, you're not going to get the slacker that's like,
Right.
I'm motivated, I'm going to go
Right.
apply for that scholarship. You're going to get the kids that I know in this town that are
That's good.
motivated
Good to know.
to move themselves forward, that want to be a nurse someday. So this would be a great idea to go get this CNA scholarship, come back and work as a CNA while I'm going to school at MSU or whatever.
My own daughter, she just graduated from MSU and a biology degree, and the entire time she worked 2 jobs, and she got scholarships from a couple of the doctors. One was a dean over there, and there are scholarships out there too. And I think there's a lot of people willing to work very hard for them.
And unfortunately, kids aren't set up for even just work your way for your college education anymore. Who can afford
If you do the work
college
study,
right
what is it,
now?
$10, $11 an hour? You're not-
It's insane.
Yeah.
The
And if you're
amount of
s-
money it costs to go to
And
college.
if you're studying those hard level classes, who has time for another job too?
Yeah.
You can't.
They're really not set up for success.
You used
in
to be able to
today's-
work all summer and pay your tuition for the next year. You can't do that anymore.
Yeah.
I know, a
So-
lot of us did.
Yep.
Wild
But, in the
times.
program that we have, but we don't get many people, within our organization who want to do this. Say, well, I mean, I work for 8-10 hours a day. A lot of people work for us are married, have have children.
That family time.
They've got all kinds of other things, you know, in their life. And there just isn't time for people to do that.
Right.
And, you know, and there are certain people that just kind of, they don't mind working, but they value their leisure as well. It's kind of the way it is.
Well, some
Play hard.
some excellent discussion that kind of, you know, clearly identified another need that we have as an EDA and, you know, perhaps something for Newburgh as well, but just wanting to kind of circle back to that part of the discussion. But is there any additional comments? Because I know that we all have given a lot of time this morning.
Long enough meeting.
Yeah, they.
This is a
they
record.
Shouldn't be this long.
No, that's
rest of the
okay.
year.
Yes, we're gonna
Just
work
don't
on
wonder
it,
what you
but
got into.
but as new commissioners and as a, you know, a newer group, we wanted to make sure that we took some time to go
items
over
out.
some of these issues so that you guys have a background. So
I do have a question. If I
Yes.
have a parking ticket, does the city pay for it now?
First one's free.
First one's free.
free. I know I'm gonna lease a parking spot. All right, with no additional business, this work session is adjourned. Thank you.